Welcome back. I'm GTGD and this is video 7. I'm going to give the player a light that turns on or off based on the hour of the day. So it's pretty interesting, and you'll also get to see the effect of C# events. So let's get into it. Now, just before I go ahead and add a light to the player, I just realized something, that my canvas clock, the panel is just a bit too big. So I was trying to, move around the scene, and I'm clicking around there, and I'm clicking on the panel, and of course, UI blocks our ability to click on a space and move the character there, because we don't want UI in general. We don't want to be able to click through UI. So anyway, and I'm not adding any particular checking for this particular game object here. So I thought the easiest thing to do is to just make this a lot narrower, so I can go right down, so I can see it anyway, how wide that is. So like 150, and the height say like 70, and then just realign that to the top of the screen, and that's better. So that now just makes it easy for myself. So okay, now let's get on to the actual subject. And so that's we're gonna just add a light component here. So let's add a light 2D, and it's going to be a spotlight intensity one. I'm going to change the color, something a bit like as if it were a lantern, a bit like that, something along there. I think just about that much. Can just experiment with it, and I'm going to give it an outer radius of like 7, make it a bit of a bigger light. I can already see some lighting effect happening there. And as for like having volumetric lighting, yeah, why not? Let's turn it on. Now that's way too strong, so I'm just going to set it down to like 0.1 maybe, thereabouts, I reckon. Now the light is only supposed to be on in the night, obviously, so I need to prepare a script that does that. So I'll make a brand new script, and I'll call it player underscore light, and I'll just attach it to the player while I'm at it. And open it up. Okay, I'm gonna have to use so using Unity engine .experimental.rendering.universal, because I need to have a reference to that light that I just added to the player. So that's why I need that. And I need a reference to the game manager, to the game manager time script, so that I can subscribe to the event on that script. So I'm going to put in here public game manager time. I'll just call this variable g manager time, something like that. Okay, next thing is the light. So public light 2D, and I'm just going to call this player light. Okay, and this is I'm gonna slot that into the inspector, and then I've got these two ints that I'm gonna have here. Private int hour to turn on light. I'm gonna give it a value of like 18, so that's 6 p.m. and hour. So the next variable is hour to turn off light, and I'm gonna give it a value of like 6, which represents 6 a.m. I don't need my start and update methods, so I'll just get rid of them. And instead, I'm going to have an onEnable method. So this is a pre-built Unity method, and an onDisable method. So onDisable. And onEnable and onDisable, if I just jump to a script, for example, or a component, see this arrow, this tick mark here, that's enabled. So if I uncheck that, that's disabled. So that script, this function, this method is going to get called when it's, for example, the script is enabled or turns on for the very first time, or whenever it's turned on. So you can disable a script. You can say this.enabled is false, and it's disabled. So whenever these happen, that's when in onEnable I'll subscribe to the event. That's in the game manager time script, and in onDisable I'll unsubscribe. So I must unsubscribe, or there'll be an error if for whatever reason the player disappears from the game and it's still subscribed. That will throw off an error and can crash our game, etc., or whatever. So we don't want that to happen. So anyway, void set light based on hour is the method that I'm going to make, and I'm going to pass in, this is the information that will come from the event. Current hour is what I'll call the variable, so it's an int. And let's fill it in here. So I'm just going to say, if current hour is greater than or equal to hour to turn on light, or so basically what I'm just giving the conditions for when the light should turn on. So or current hour is less than hour to turn off light. So if either of these conditions exist, then player light dot enabled is equal to true. Otherwise, no. So else and I'll just copy this for myself, is equal to false. So what I'm saying here is if the current hour, let's say it's 7 a.m., is it greater than or equal to hour to turn on light? No, because it's not bigger than 6 p.m., so 18. Or is it current hour less than hour to turn off light? Well, no, because 7 a.m. is bigger than 6 a.m. So in that case, it'll be an else, and the light would be disabled. So dot enabled is equal to false. Now let's just subscribe, so you get the idea of the code. Pretty simple. So gmanager time dot event time change. That's how you subscribe to a C# method. It's plus equals set light based on hour. And I'm gonna just copy this, put it in the on disable, but in this case it's going to be minus equals. So just take note of that. It's minus equals. Okay, and just save the script. So that's how you unsubscribe from the event when the script is disabled. And that's it. So now if I just jump into the game manager time script, just have a look at that event again. And it was very simple. So all we're doing, we're going to call this whenever the hour changes as per this method, the set clock method. Whenever the hour changes, it's going to send out this message which contains the data, hours to transmit, which is basically hours to display. Very basic. And this is the actual event definition here. It's very basic. So you don't actually have to variables in there, but in this case, what our objective is, we want to transmit that data across, and that's why I've put in int hours, but you can have absolutely nothing in there, and you're just simply wanting an event, something to happen, whatever, and you can subscribe to that event, and just you don't need a variable in the new method that you create then. So it could be just empty. But in this case, it won't work, so you must have a variable. See, it's going to throw up an error. It's expecting you can't subscribe without doing something with that data. So it needs to have that. Let me just undo that. Okay, all good. So let's save that, jump back in, and coming to the player, let's set up this stuff. So I'm going to plug in the game manager time script, and the player, let's drag the player. I mean, it is just talking about this very light here. So very good. Let's go ahead and just save this and run and see what we get. Okay, it's nighttime, early morning, and there we go. We can see the light. I'm going to speed up time, so I'll just put up the time speed there, and there we go. The light just turned off. So if I just take our game manager and I just bump up the time, 800, still not late enough, 1000. So we'll be getting close to sunset. So 6 p.m. is when our light turns on. Okay, and the light has turned on. Very good. And it's working there. So you can adjust that. You can adjust, your light gradient to achieve the effect you want. Now you'll notice something. So if I maximize, you can notice that the light is going through the walls and stuff. At this time, Unity doesn't have an official, as far as I know, an official answer for that. They don't have an official shadow system for the tile map, but there have been Unity developers who have made solutions for that, and there's one particular really good one, so let's go have a look at it. So if we want to have shadows from our tile map, which is just looks quite impressive, so a really good solution has been developed by someone called Brian Craig, and this is on the Unity forums, so you can head over there. So it's a great place to find all sorts of information. If you Google it, when you Google stuff like, tile map, that's what I was doing. I was looking for, tile maps, shadow casting on a tile map, and then I came across this thread, and this happens to be a really good solution. So go to his GitHub, which I've done, and go ahead and download the zip package, and I recommend using it. I mean, it's all experimental. Even the 2D light system that we're using right now is experimental, so whatever. And it doesn't seem to cause any crashes as far as I can see so far, so I think that's pretty good. So go ahead and download it. Okay, and once you've downloaded that, just go inside of the zip folder and then just copy that and then go to your Unity folder. So you'll want to go to your Assets folder and just show in Explorer. And inside of Assets, you're going to paste it inside of here. Okay, that's great. And so go to Unity, it'll compile for a moment. Okay, so we now have it in the project. So we've got this in there. And we're going to use a runtime script called a tilemap shadowcaster 2D. So we go to our tilemap, and I guess the relevant one to put it on is the construction layer. It does need a composite 2D collider, so we need to add that. So let's just do that. So composite 2D collider, and when we do that, it's going to add a rigid body, and we don't want simulated on, so turn it off. Otherwise what will happen is the tilemap will fall. It'll be affected by gravity and fall, so it makes no sense. That you can go do it and see for yourself what will happen. And then back up in the tilemap collider 2D, I can't quite remember if you have to check use by composite. I'm just going to do it. Maybe I'll experiment afterwards. If you can go ahead experiment whether this is required to have the shadows. I can't remember. I just know that when I put a composite collider 2D on, I should probably just go and tick that checkbox there called use by composite. Okay, so that's the first step there. Next one is to actually put on this component there. Okay, and I don't want to apply self shadows. It'll make it look darker. You can go ahead again, experiment with this to see what effect you get. Now coming back to the player, we need to go and adjust that light on shadows, on the shadows tab. Turn on the shadows, and for just making it super clear, I'm going to just bump up the strength of the shadows to 1, and also for the volumetric component or portion as well, I'm going to just bump it right up to 1. Okay, let's save that. Let's go ahead and see what happened. Okay, so if we come close, and I can see it's working. It's really quite amazing there, and there you go. You can see that it is really, really neat. So if I just make that a bit bigger, I can see that this system is really working, and I now have a tile map with shadows. Now it is based off the sprite collider, the collider. So the door, of course, doesn't have a collider on it, so the player can go through, and it's not counted by the nav mesh system. And that's why it looks like the shadows casting through part of the door. So if you adjust maybe the graphics, make the door fuller or something, or play around with that, may be able to get a better effect than what I've got at the moment. But as you can see, now let me just make it really dark at night, so the effect is a lot clearer. So if I set that to 0, yeah, now you can really, now it's really dark, and you can see the light is not going in, which is very impressive. So that's pretty good. Anyway, it's just an option there. You don't have to have it. You could just stick with the default Unity setup. I hope in time that this is just going to be built in, and you don't have to do this sort of a thing. So I would expect that would be the case. So if you're using this a lot more in the future, if you're watching this tutorial series a few years from now, from when I made it, then yeah, I would expect that by then that this sort of stuff is all inbuilt into the 2D system. Now I just bump up time just like that, 350. Okay, it's about to become daylight, and what I just want to see is that yes, my light turns off, and that's what I expect when it's at 6 a.m. Bang, that's it. Fantastic. Alright, so I would say that's that for this video. So we have successfully gone ahead, created a light for our player, and we have made that light respond to the time of day, which is very good. We've used the C# event for that, and we went and added in pretty much an experimental shadow system for our tile map, which actually looks pretty good. So I think that's pretty much it. So yep, I'll see you in the next video where we're going to make a start on our construction system. So that's going to be a very interesting video. You're going to start being able to place tiles in the world. Okay, see you then.